Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to our next episode of Masters of Product. Our topic for today is I actually want to show you how a PM who's in the weeds using AI day to day. And for that, I've invited Ben. Ben Carmel is currently a staff product manager at SentinelOne. He is actually one of the winners of the recent AI challenge that we actually ran at SentinelOne. And previously, he used to be a product manager and a product engineer, by the way, at my old company, IBM and SolarEdge. Ben also used to own a web development firm in New York City, where he built great web experiences for small and medium-sized businesses. As for me, my name is Mustafa Kapadia. I'm your host, and I'm also the managing director at EchoPoint, where I actually help product organizations like SentinelOne use AI to become more effective and efficient. Ben, welcome to the show.
Hey, Mustafa, thank you for having me. Thank you, everyone,
This
for
is
joining. Looking forward.
Yeah. Yes. And by the way, for people who are listening in, please drop in. Tell us where you're coming from. Tell us where you're listening from. And by the way, this is interactive. So the point is, yes, Ben's going to show us what he's doing, all the awesome things he's doing with AI, but then you can ask him questions directly. So tell us where you're from, drop us a note, and then let's make this interactive. So Ben, you and I have talked about this since our engagement and since the AI challenge. I think what you actually end up doing is fantastic. So I wanted to bring you on the show. I wanted people to see the power of AI once you learn how to use it effectively, right? So why don't we actually, if it's okay with you, let's just jump in, because that's what people are here for.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Perfect.
Why don't you share with the crowd, with our audience, what exactly are you trying to do with AI? Just high level, big picture.
Perfect. Yeah. So what I'm trying to do with AI till this day, product management, design, development, all our worlds are being heavily impacted by AI. I'm not renewing anything to you, but I find product management very interesting because it's a very text heavy, very formatted, brainstorming field. So it screams AI. So we invest a lot of times in interviews and customer calls and summaries and creating PRDs, doing all that fun stuff, and that requires a lot of time. Yes, we do need PMs to do that, but we can make our work better and faster using AI, and that's what I'm trying to do till this day at SentinelOne.
Yeah, that's great. You and I have been through a journey, right? When we first started early last year, you were already using AI a lot. Then you were kind enough to come through the boot camp, and then it has actually supercharged from what you've told me, the way you use AI. Why don't you share with the audience? Why don't you share with them what you're going to showcase today, right? Because I think
Perfect.
the
Yeah.
idea that you've actually automated the entire process of, from going from an idea all the way into the Jira ticket and saving tons of time and actually streamlining the process is a fantastic one. So tell us more about that and why you chose that.
Perfect. Sure. So I went for an approach. I'm a heavy lovable user. I really like the idea of vibe coding, and the reason is not because of the buzzword, but I feel that it makes me more efficient. I can convey my idea a lot quicker, a lot more efficiently in
Yeah,
front of engineers, executives, and so forth.
100%.
So what
Yeah,
I did was I took the vibe PM approach, and I tried to understand what is the source code, what is the code of PMs, and my
yes,
conclusion was well crafted basic artifacts. And in my
yes,
world, those are Jira themes. They can be Jira
yeah,
epics. It can be a PRD. That was my approach. And then what I
yeah,
said was, if the starting artifacts are very well crafted and just simply good, that's going to affect the whole downstream process of product
yes,
management.
100%. Yeah,
So
I like
what I did,
that
yeah,
approach. Yeah, because a lot of
sweet,
people put, a lot of people make fun of PRDs and artifacts and so on and so forth. And I'm like, that's not the point. The point of the document is to actually help you think through all the things. And so if you deliver a high quality artifact or a high quality PRD, just like you said, the downstream effects, it saves you a lot of time, saves you a lot of rework. It better collaboration with engineering and design, right? So focusing on the artifacts, not just because it's a PRD, but actually building things and thinking through things that
exactly.
you may not have thought about is what makes you a better PM, in my opinion, right? And by the way,
Exactly.
building these artifacts is still bread and butter. I don't see it changing over
Agreed.
time. Yes, AI can help, but I don't see AI actually getting rid of any of these artifacts, right? Maybe
Agreed
changing them.
100%.
So,
Agreed
uh,
100%. My
yeah,
specifically my VP of product really ensures that we keep, highest standard artifacts. And my goal here was not to, eliminate any of them. My idea was to make it faster so we can focus on real product management. So
yeah,
the flow
yeah,
I built, can you share my screen? Can you
yeah.
share the screen,
Why
Mustafa?
don't?
I'll show, I'll explain in high level what I tried doing here. So what I did was I said, listen, themes, epics, and user stories, those are something that I can build templates, examples, past cases around. So what I did was I essentially created templates. The reason is the better the data, the better the templates, the more
Hmm.
efficient the artificial intelligence. And then
Yes.
what I did was based on Mustafa's help, I understood how to effectively prompt. I thought I was very good at prompting until I understood that I need to provide a role. I need to provide the context, the instructions, the step by step. What do you do in case of an error? Simple example. If I don't provide you with competitors, don't make up competitors.
Yes.
OpenAI, don't start saying that I compete with XYZ company because they're not my competitors. So it was very
Yeah.
interesting to see how I can manipulate OpenAI to do exactly what I'm
Yeah.
interested in.
Yeah.
So that was
You're
the
just
second
kind of
thing.
getting
Yeah,
better at asking questions, which is what makes the
exactly,
difference between a good output and a bad output. So,
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. So the idea was I take the templates that I created, I create predefined GPTs based on Mustafa's workflow and what he taught us. What I do there is I take the output of ChatGPT. So meaning you interacted with ChatGPT, he provided themes, epics, whatever it may be. Those are then extracted into a Google document. That Google document is a trigger for a Workato recipe. So those I play with a lot of N8N, a lot of Make, a lot of those
Yeah.
tools. It's a similar tool. So what it does is it automates workflows. So that workflow looks at a specific Google folder. When I upload a new theme into that folder, what that's going to do is going to trigger my automation recipe. And what that does is it opens a Jira automatically for me. So back in
Yeah.
the day, I used to sit here and write all this. I need to make sure I wrote it correctly, that I have proper English, no grammatical errors. You get the idea. So here, end to end, I started from a OpenAI console, and I ended up with a Slack message and a Jira link with the Jira fully formatted for me.
That's perfect. So you literally are taking the entire life cycle of how you actually create your requirements, right? All the way from templates that are in a Google document to using AI to build to help you write all those things, creating an output, and then actually going all the way into Jira itself, right? And then Workato is the one who's orchestrating the whole thing for you, right?
Correct.
Um, I want you to show a demo so that people can see, and then I really want to focus on just you know how has this benefited you, right?
Perfect.
Because it's easy to kind of get into the weeds of these things, but I also want to talk about the larger picture. So
Perfect. Yeah. So I'm going to show a demo. I pre-ran the GPT to make sure, we were efficient with timing here.
yeah,
So the idea was this. The idea was I don't want to throw PMs into a very scary monster prompt where they don't know what's going on and the GPT writes everything in one shot. My idea here was, and this is what I learned from the boot camp, we need to go step by step. We need to go in small and very efficient chunks and
yeah,
iterate. I don't want to provide a full artifact where people sit there and don't understand how he created this and so forth. So the idea was that I want them to interact, provide product management with the predefined GPT. So in this case, what I did was I asked the first question, what is the name of the feature? I then asked, what is the customer problem we're trying to solve? This is
perfect.
then they asked me a quick check. I added another step into my GPT that said, hey, listen, if you already wrote your PRD or your PRFAQ, drop it in. Throw the doc in here. I know how to create an artifact from that. So for the sake of this demo, I didn't just drop in a PRD because that'd be a bit boring. What I did was I said, let's continue. I want to vibe PM.
Yeah,
How does this align with the SentinelOne strategy? And then I kept going and it said, what is the customer value? Why is this important to do now? Why are we even solving this
perfect.
problem now? I get it, it's a cool feature. And then what I did was I said, why is this now the right time?
Yeah,
Uh, Next, do you have any evidence or supporting data? By the way, I wanted you to catch that. I said, why is this important to solve now? I copied in by accident the same answer. It said, wait a minute. It sounds like the repeat of the customer value. Let's refocus this one. So it made sure that I was correct. That
Yes.
was also error handling in the GPT to make sure it didn't just take, okay, thank you. So I'm going to use the same thing.
Yeah.
And then what I did was I said, do you have any evidence or supporting data? I dropped in a customer quote, a full customer email. I said, hey, listen, this
Perfect.
is the email. Summarize it, make it nice and concise. I'll speed it up a bit so we have time. And then I said, what does the ideal solution look like? Give me a high level flow. I'm expecting every PM to understand how this thing is supposed to work. I'm not going into the
Yeah.
technical details. And then voila, what it does is it gives you a fully crafted Jira theme based on the
Nice.
format that I defined in the first step. But that's not it.
Perfect.
And then I'll stop for questions, comments. Notice I added notable competitors. So it provides a full breakdown of the competitors. What are the gaps and opportunities? And here's the straight link to the documentation of why I even decided this is a competitor.
Nice.
If that will, exactly. And then this is the interesting part. And I'm going to stop for questions, comments. What I did from here was I said, listen, are you ready to move on? I stop. Do you approve? Do you want to edit? In the case I wanted to approve, I jump into the next few steps. Okay. I remember we create themes. We then
Yeah.
go to epics. We then go to user stories. And then we go to acceptance criteria. So the idea here was I said, okay, I approve. They said, all right, let's create some user stories for you. Before I create
Perfect.
the user stories, what personas are you interested in? Well, who are you trying to create these user stories for? I said the SOC analyst, the SOC admin, and the IT admin. Notice everything is very conversational. Everything here is very interactive. I'm not looking to automate PMs. And then it said, okay, I'm going to generate it based on the format. I'll give you a spoiler. This is the format I explained to the GPT. It gave me 5 for each of them because that's what I defined. It said, hey, listen, for the SOC analyst, for the SOC admin, and for the IT admin, here are 5 user stories per persona. And then with a simple numerical input, you can say, which ones do you want to keep? Because I don't like all of them. That's the point of the
Of
PM. I don't
course.
want to just copy paste from ChatGPT. So you enter 1, 3, 5, 9, and 11. It says, all right, sounds good. These are the user stories you selected. Are you okay with these names for the user stories? I provided an epic title. And then what I did was say, hey, listen, please approve again. I don't want to keep running without your approval. Mac OS, and then we have Epic One. We have the functional requirements, we have the UX requirements, the non-functional requirements, and the acceptance
Nice.
criteria. So everything was very incremental, very
Yeah.
organized, and very. What I want you to understand here is that these are the building blocks to a future of AI PM enablement. The reason I say
Yeah.
that is because if we have proper artifacts, imagine the power of taking this and creating Figmas or having
Yeah.
grooming sessions with engineering. It's very clear because everything's organized and everything's formatted. I'm going to stop for
Yeah.
questions, Mustafa.
This is great. And by the way, questions from our audience too. Please let me know if you have any questions for Ben. I think this is fantastic. I know you shared some of this when we had the AI challenge, and even then, I was actually really impressed about how much you had done in such a short amount of time.
Yeah.
What I really like about this, to be honest with you, is that you're right. You're not using AI like a black box and saying just write a PRD. In reality, you're doing the best thing that you can do is, which is optimize AI and human. So it's human AI optimization that you like. So AI can quote unquote guide you, but ultimately you're in control and you're the one making the decisions, right? So that ultimately, so you end up getting a set of requirements that you can say, yeah, this makes sense. And then AI is just doing the quote unquote the dirty work of just writing things for you as you make decisions.
Exactly.
And this is,
Exactly.
like I said, people talk about vibe coding, but this is vibe PMing, like you said, right? In
Yeah.
which you're using the best of GPT and you're using the best of your knowledge. And this way you are getting the most out of it and saving time, right?
Precisely.
I would love for you to show the prompt, but before you go there, let's kind of talk about overall, how has this changed the way you work now that you're doing this? And
Yeah.
just give people
So
an idea about time saved or velocity or any other benefits that you can think of.
perfect. Yeah. So I actually prepared a one slider just to explain
Yeah.
how I computed it. It was very straightforward. The way I did it was as follows. I looked at all the themes that my product team created in a specific quarter. That came out to roughly 160, rounded up just to make the math easier.
Yeah.
On average, if you sit and create a good theme, you do that. You sit there, you make sure the text is okay, you make sure you're not overwriting. That's going to take you roughly 2 hours to create.
Yeah.
Each theme has an average of 5 user stories or epics. That was the number I got from Jira.
Yeah.
Those take roughly an hour to create. Following the math, I added a buffer for iterations. what we're talking about is roughly 2,000 hours. Okay, we have a very large product organization at SentinelOne. So that came out to roughly 2,000 hours per quarter. Divide that by 3. Okay, I rounded up and so forth. Let's say 500 to 600 hours saved. And
Yeah.
again, I want to make it clear, I'm not trying to save time for PMs only. What I'm trying to do is make our base artifacts solid and strong.
Yeah.
That way I can simply, if technical writers or UX designers want to understand what I'm doing here, I send them a simple link to my theme. All the user stories are documented. All the theme is documented. I provided business context and
Yes.
so forth. You can imagine the amount of meetings and ping pongs that I saved just by creating well-structured artifacts.
Yes. And that's
Now,
right.
to answer your second question, yeah, just to
Yeah,
answer
please.
your second question around, I wanted to make sure that the crowd sees this. I mentioned that we create everything in ChatGPT. As you can see here, the end artifact is going to be essentially, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Canvas, but essentially
Yes.
what you get here is you get a theme. You can see this is exactly the way I wanted it to look. And the idea here, the power around this was I essentially created a Workato recipe, which what it does in very high level, it looks at a specific Google Drive folder. So if I upload a new theme, let's call it theme A for the sake of the demonstration, in the form of a Google document, what that's going to do is it's going to trigger my recipe to run, extract that information, contact Jira, and essentially open. This is my sandbox. Don't worry, it's nothing. It's a bunch of dummy data. The idea here is that it automatically created the Jira. You can see how beautifully formatted it was. So I took that to another level where I said, listen, don't only create the document, let's create an automation. Many of you are familiar with N8N, Make, and so forth, those various tools. It's a very similar approach. And
Yeah.
that's going to answer Mustafa's question, because I think that what we did ever since the boot camp was we did a very dramatic mind shift. I changed the way I think. So what we did was I said, listen, why are we wasting so much time on release notes? Why are we sending these same emails to the same prospects? Why are we not automating this stuff? And why are we not combining AI? Not everything needs AI, by the way, secret. But why are we not combining automation with AI? And that's where the
Yeah.
mind shift changed. And we already created roughly 15 different automations to save time. Let me know
Yeah.
if that answers the question, Mustafa.
No, that does, and I actually think you actually asked beautiful answered it beautifully, because the three things that I keep hearing from all my clients is, number one is, of course, save time, which you talked about. Number two is quality. Quality improves dramatically, and even though quality is hard to measure, it shows up in the things that you talked about: time saved in meetings, in rework, in downstream effects to developers and
Exactly.
designers, right? And then, of course, when you add pieces of automation like Workato or Zapier or Make or any of the other tools out there, then you are taking away the transportation that you have to do, from taking it from a hard document in Google Docs and turning it into a Jira ticket, right? That itself is all taken care of, and the LLM does all the translation and the filling it out, and so that saves you a
Exactly.
massive amount of time. And again, you're now giving the rest of the organization much more details that they never got before, written in a way that they can understand, right? Which helps make the communication that much better, right? I think
Correct.
this is fantastic. We may have hold on. I think we have a question. So let's see. Alan,
Yeah.
let's talk. Let's see what Alan has to say. Alan is asking, has the time to get engineering estimates and completed code been accelerated by having a more detailed and granular story? I think that's a fantastic follow-up question.
It's a very good question. Yeah, that's a very good question. That's, by the way, that's my KPI, because I knew it saved time for us. Very simple math. I don't need to write all this by hand, but that's a very good question. I'll explain why it saved time. The reason it saved time was because before we came up with defined, structured tooling, think about it. Every PM, every person in the organization can open an epic based on their format, based on what they learned at
Yeah.
previous company, based on what they think is correct. They just open placeholder epics. This happened to me at every big organization that I worked in. It was very hard to align around a specific structure. So what happens is, now that we have defined structures, the engineering managers know what they're going to get in the ticket. First of all, if they're missing anything, I already got feedback where they said, listen, I need a bit more information around the high level flow. Another feature request I got was said, hey, listen, Ben, take the input of the theme and create some very high level wireframes. I'm not even talking about UX
Right.
full blown UI flows. I'm talking about just wireframes. So to answer your question, yes, what happens is now they know what they're going to get. We require those specific user stories. So now you cannot just open a theme without context. You need to tell me what the user needs to do. What are the 5 to 10 most common user stories? And then most importantly, what is the acceptance criteria? Because I can say as a user, I want to be able to block a USB device. That doesn't mean too much because I need to understand what are we talking about? Every single USB, a specific company? Do we have any performance requirements? You get the
Yeah.
idea. So I think that once we added this structure and we mandated that it goes by a very automated and specific template, it dramatically saved time around engineering because they know what they're getting and they know
Yeah.
how that they can request it.
Yeah. And by the way, to add to Alan's question, it's not just the downstream that it benefits. It's actually even when you think about upstream and leadership. And so, how many times? And when I used to run organizations, I would always complain that the Jira tickets look like crap. They don't
Exactly.
make sense, right? It doesn't. It from a management perspective, because the Jira tickets are written in different formats, different level of understanding, it's always hard. But once you actually have AI do it for you, it just makes it easier from a management perspective as well to just know what's going on in the organization. And so even for your leadership and for your CPOs, they can open up any Jira ticket now and know exactly where to go, right? And that makes leading the team easier as well. So I think there's benefits across the board when you start doing the things like what Ben is talking about. So
And
um,
Alan, I'm going to answer. I want to provide another example, exactly what Mustafa mentioned. So what I did was we created digital twins. So another topic that I learned in the boot camp, and this is a classic example. My CPO is known for very high standard when it comes to writing, make it very professional, very concise. I don't like fluff, et cetera, et cetera. You can imagine how many requests you get to review documents. What we did was we created a digital twin around our CPO. What you can see here, I prepared it before the demonstration, but what I did was I essentially threw this whole entire, sorry for jumping around, I took this whole entire theme that I just showed you how I created. I threw this guy into here. I said, hey, listen, please, my prompt was, can you please pass this through Eli's digital twin and provide a score? I don't want him to just fix it. I want to know what I did wrong. So you can see that the customer focus, I got an 8 out of 10. The innovation was a 7. Clarity of writing was a 9. The adherence to the template was a 6. So that answers your question on if I saved engineering time, because if I don't adhere to the template, I'm going to get feedback.
yeah,
Here's the improvements, my friend. And I'm going to provide you an updated version where you can just copy paste that into Jira. So that was another cool
perfect.
example that I learned at Mustafa's bootcamp to save
Yeah,
my CPO review time.
yeah, and it makes Ben look good because he's like, oh, this is
Exactly.
exactly what I want, right? And ultimately, that's what matters too. So, and by the way, the idea about digital twin is we're just scratching the surface. Like I know you built one for your leadership, but you can build one for your customers. You can build it for all the different
Exactly.
stakeholders, you name it. And so we're, like I said, we're just scratching the surface. I want to go deeper because I'm sure other people are asking. Why don't you share with the audience the prompt itself? Because
Yeah,
you
sure.
know, you and I have a very different way of writing prompts, and because we write it in such a way that we can get high quality results. So why don't you share that, please?
Perfect. Great. So I have it prepared in advance. You guys can see my screen. So I'll give it to
Yep.
you and I'll explain the structure and then I'll start for any questions. But the idea is as follows. I need to provide a role. I need to make sure that they understand, ChatGPT understands what role they're playing. What I decided to put the focus on, you're not only a very strong PM at SentinelOne, you're known for creating strong workflows, meaning you're not just an executioner. What you are
Yeah.
is you're very, very strong at workflows. You understand processes. You need to understand how to build these things.
Yeah.
Instructions. So what I did was I said, listen, I'm going to combine usually, it's going to follow into my final topic around context engineering, but the idea is as follows. You need to provide an input and instructions. What I decided to do was experiment with a method in which I take the instructions and I combine it with the input. I'll explain. That
Yeah.
was a bit confusing. The idea is as follows. Notice my ChatGPT asked me throughout the whole way. It said, hey, listen, this is the question I want to ask. This is the input. This is the question. This is the
Yeah.
input. The way I executed that on ChatGPT was I said, listen, ask the user one question at a time in the theme section. Once the user Once they answer a question, you ask them the next one. After the second question is responded, ask the user if they want to attach a peer FAQ and continue generating a theme. If they enter a peer FAQ, generate the remaining sections based on the peer FAQ. If they do not, then continue walking them through the theme creation flow. You can see this was very
It's very
explicit, very
precise.
straightforward on
Yeah.
what to do. Very, very precise. And then you can see this is not by chance, these are the exact questions. Now, the power behind this, I can remove questions, I can add questions. Following your question, engineering said, listen, I need some more details in the theme. I'm missing. So I can simply come here and mandate
Yeah.
another question. The theme
The other
instruction.
thing I like is that you focus on first principles, which, by the way, as a PM, you can forget so often because you're in the weeds. But you ask the questions that you should be asking anyways, right? Who's the customer?
Exactly.
What problem are you going to solve? And so the theme actually allows you to be a much more effective. Sorry, the
Exactly.
GPT that you built allows you to. It forces yourself to think about those first principles, and so you become a much more effective PM, right? So
Exactly. So then you have the theme instructions. I say, listen, the person provided the input. Here's the theme instructions. Generate a product theme based on the following template. So for each field, I described what it was, the description, the full narrative, the customer value, business justification. The reason, by the way, some will ask me, why do you add these, let's call them tooltips? The reasoning is I want ChatGPT to understand what they're going to receive, and if they're missing it, what to ask the user. So if I were to just delegate and say, listen, I don't have any customer value, I don't know what the description is, it's going to say, hey, dear user, for me to generate a real proper theme, I need a description. If you didn't understand what it was, it's a concise, descriptive description of the purpose of the theme. You get the idea? The idea is give it as much information as you can,
yeah,
because you know that it's going to use it for the user. And then I'm going to go over just because the epics and the user stories and so forth are based on the same logic. Just notice I said, listen, I'm also interested in notable competitors. So what this is essentially is a GPT in a GPT. Because what I said was, listen, you add a theme. The user is not going to tell you what the notable competitors are. I told them, listen, CrowdStrike, Microsoft, and Palo Alto, they're known as SentinelOne competitors.
yeah,
Please provide a breakdown with the following information. Then you get the gist of it. The idea is that step 2 is the user story generation. Step 3 is the epic requirements, acceptance criteria, and so forth and so forth. So it's a pretty complex GPT. It took me a lot of iteration. I just want to mention that to the crowd. This took me a lot of iteration to make sure it didn't hallucinate, to make sure it knew how to error handle, which is not less
yeah,
important. I tried a bunch of scenarios where I didn't enter input, and I wanted to see if it made up a bunch of stuff. And the answer is yes, it
yeah,
did. So I need to go to those bullets and say, listen, do not make up feature
yeah.
requests. Where'd you get these feature requests? You get the idea. That was
Yeah, and that's exactly what we talked about in the boot camp too. A lot of it is
yeah,
trial and error, but once you get it, right, it's reusable. You can do it again and again and again. And by the way, you can always keep changing it and make it better over time, right? If it's okay, let me jump to another one. So now that you've built
yeah,
this, tell me what has been how has been the reaction of the rest of your PMs in your organization? How are
yeah.
they using this? Do they have their own GPTs? What's going on there? Because I know you guys, the amount of creativity that came out of that boot camp and the challenge was just amazing, and people doing
Yeah.
amazing things that they could never do before. I think one person had the idea that she was for the first time she was able to take an idea to prototype. Never happened before, right? So tell me how the rest of the organization is now using AI.
So very good questions. I'm going to say it simply. It's fundamentally changed the way we work, and I'll explain with practical examples.
Yeah,
The idea here is as follows. For those of you who didn't understand, we did a full boot camp. The end of the boot camp was essentially a challenge in which we all created our own automations. Where did we get the ideas from? We all basically just posted a bunch of stuff that we do not like doing and how can we automate it. And then a bunch of folks, picked specific ones we're interested in. And we're talking about double-digit automations. So how did it change? So what I did once we finished the boot camp, we opened an AI PM squad, which I lead. And what I do there is I essentially post AI updates. So what I did was I created an open AI task that runs every Sunday and tells me, listen, this is the new updates from the AI world. Notebook LM dropped a new version. Claude has new MCP connector. You get the idea. So what I did was it was divided into two. Staying ahead of the game. So I didn't rest at custom GPTs. We wanted to
yeah,
understand how we take this forward. How do we do? Can we implement RAG? So something very
yeah,
cool that we're doing now is I said, listen, We have a bunch of customer interviews, hours of recordings and transcripts in which we interviewed personas. I wanted to understand
Yeah.
how IT admins really work, not just based on the stories. So we have transcripts that yells RAG. Let's take that into a RAG. We train it based on that information, and then what I get, what a result is I can interact and say, hey, listen, IT admin, I'm thinking of building this feature. Do you have any
Yeah.
feedback? You get the idea. So we took it to endless different directions. I'm really excited about what we're doing in the future. But to summarize, I think that it's obvious that we all use OpenAI on an hourly
Yeah.
basis at work. But what I found very interesting was the bigger use cases, and that's my that's my goal is to eventually say, listen, uh, we can start working with MCPs. We can start working about
Yeah.
the next level tooling in which what, let's do Figma to Jira. Why are we going through all these processes? Why don't I just throw UI prototypes? I use an MCP. I contact the Jira MCP, and I can open tickets within a few clicks. So that's what I found very interesting. And that's where we're going. We're going with very,
Yeah.
very, cutting edge workflows, and that's what we're trying to
Yeah.
do.
I think it's great because I think from just where you guys started to where you guys are now, it's just
Yeah.
and we're not talking a lot of time, right? If you think about it, our
Right.
engagement started in April, May. And since then the team has just it's been lightning fast the adoption, which has been
Yeah.
fantastic. And congratulations on starting the AI squad, I believe. I didn't
Yeah.
realize that. So that's awesome to
AI
hear that.
PM squad. Yeah. Yeah.
AI PM squad. I know we only have a few more minutes. So number one, if you have questions, please ask Ben. Let me talk to you about like what has been the most surprising part about this journey, right? Like you said that when you entered in early January, you were already using AI like crazy, right? And then
Yeah.
the bootcamp really accelerated things. So tell me what has been surprising since like how you were thinking about using AI in January to like how you're using it now.
Yeah. So I would say the most surprising thing to me uh, regarding AI in general and the boot camp was I didn't realize how important it was to nail down the fundamentals before you start building out. So I think that humans in general, especially now, we're not really patient. We want to go quickly. We just say, "Hey, ChatGPT,
Yeah.
please generate a PRD for me. Here's the text." So I think that
Yes.
the main thing that I was very surprised at was if you invest in the fundamentals, you do invest that half an hour into writing a well-crafted prompt, you're going to be completely shocked by the difference of results. And I
Yeah.
think that once you nail down those fundamentals, it's really important to understand what prompt engineering means. How does this
Yeah.
work? How does this work in the background? Like, what is, I mean, what are the different trade-offs? Why do I select a specific model and not the other? I think that the
Yeah.
main thing I was dumbfounded about was if you build a solid foundation, the other parts become much easier. So when I explain RAG to some people, they're like, "What did you just say?" But when I tell them, "Listen, it's taking documents, parsing them, and storing them in a database in very high level," it becomes very easy to comprehend, especially with the tooling. We're not in a place where only software engineers can build AI tooling.
Yeah.
We're in a place where you can use human text to generate
Yeah.
prototypes. So I think that's my main shock.
Yeah.
Where you have to really invest in the fundamentals. It reminds me of math, by the way, when I was in elementary
Yeah.
school, where they said, "Listen, you can't go to multiplication without addition." That was the
I think that's a great insight. And you know what? I should I should talk about that too because you're absolutely right. Sometimes you need to slow down and get to the basics first, so that once you have a strong foundation, you can build a house much faster, right? Um,
exactly.
I'm curious now that you have a good fundamentals. What are the things that you can do now that you thought you could never do in the past? Like what has
Yeah,
changed dramatically?
perfect. Wow, good question. So I would say the main ones are around interaction between different tooling and systems. So everyone
Yeah.
was very scared of, hold on, wait a minute, I'm in ChatGPT. How do I get Workato to work? What is a trigger? What is the connector? So I specifically came from software engineering. So I was used to words like APIs and,
Yeah.
and, and tokens and, OAuth. What does that mean? What does the access mean? So I think that was the main, let's call it, initial scare we had was, listen, I have ChatGPT. How do I get this thing to talk to this thing? And how do I get Jira to understand what a trigger is? It was a very new way of thinking, because we used to think of, okay, if I want to build an automation to open Jira, I need to talk to my Jira admin. That's the way people usually work.
That's
And
the way
then
it
what I
used to
found,
work, right?
yeah, exactly. So I think that was the most like, wow. And then when I got the first recipe going, which was the manual trigger, it just said, listen, you press play, and I'm going to send an email. I did the stupidest thing in the world just to see that it works. I said, listen, send hello world to a specific Slack channel. That was my first automation. And then what we did there was we understood how these things work, what a connection is. It goes back to what I said about fundamentals. What do connections mean? What do permissions mean? What is a for loop? Things that like people need to comprehend what they mean. Once you get those things down, the opportunities are endless. Like I can show you in future episodes different automations we built. I mean, it's really game changing.
I think that's good. And I know we have a few more minutes, so the one last question is, what has been the reaction? I know the adoption within the PM team has been very solid, right? And especially not with you, but just the rest of the organization, with Eli and the leadership there, you're moving forward.
Yeah.
What has been the reaction of the rest of the organization, right? Because when PMs start speeding up and start delivering great quality work, it impacts designers and engineers and even
Exactly.
sales and go-to-market and product marketing. So what has been their reaction, and how are they coping with the PM team now being, for a lack of a better word, hyper efficient, right?
Exactly. Amazing. I love the question because it's I have an example to elaborate, but the short answer to your question is they want more. They want in. They're interested in how we did this. How do
Yeah,
I get one of these for me? That was the initial reaction. I'll explain an example. What we did is, after the challenge, Eli, my VP of product, essentially really wanted to give us a stage for the organization. We presented the work to the CEO of SentinelOne. The whole organization in general is very, very AI first. That's where we started, by the way, 13 years ago. We decided, we understood what AI security meant back in the day. So it's a very AI first organization. So to answer your question, what we did was I demoed the ByPM playbook, and I got two very specific messages. I got a message from the documentation team that said, "Hey, listen, I want to understand exactly how you build these custom GPTs, because when it talks about release notes and notifications and Pendo notifications, all these things are very text heavy, and we sit there and we review tickets, we approve them, we don't approve them, we edit them, we fix the English. It's very, very manual, and it's something that happened to me at every single one of the organizations. And I essentially teamed up with her, and we built a full release note automation, because it's a very documentation team interaction. Another very interesting one we did was the folks from accounting. Who would believe? What does accounting have to do with AI? They pinged me. They said, "Hey, listen, Ben, your themes, I need those for capitalization. I need to understand how much of this software is capitalizable. This is a game-changing number that affects your bottom line. If you don't capitalize correctly, it's a very big miss."
yeah,
So I was like, wow, you know what? I just understood how we do that today. We sit there, we read the theme, we enter a one-liner. The accounting team comes back and says, wait a minute, what does this mean? I'm not a software engineer. I don't understand what you just said. Why is this capitalizable? What is the text? What I did was I looked online, what is capitalizable software? I attached that to this. You guys can see my screen. I can show you real quick, 1 minute, literally 20 seconds. What I did was I used another ChatGPT feature that folks are not familiar with. You can add knowledge. So what I did was I uploaded a file, and I called that software capitalization standard. It's a public document. And I built a GPT for PMs to help to work with, to say, listen, this is my theme. It's going to output proposed text for the accounting team and tell you if it's capitalizable or not. So a very simple example where accounting came back and said, listen, we need help. I called it the capitalization co-pilot.
perfect. I think that's great. And just to bring that back, one of the things that AI allows you to do, it helps you translate the way you work for other people to understand, so that you guys can work together. First, just like the accounting example that you had, right? PMs write a certain way, accountants think like a certain way. AI can help
Exactly.
translate the two, which helps make both of them more effective, right?
Exactly.
But with that being said, we're almost out of time. But Ben, thank you. We will have to get you back so that you can talk about all the great things that
With
you've been
pleasure.
doing. So maybe 6 months from now, I would love to see how you actually even taken what you've done so far. and take it forward. And like I
Perfect.
said, kudos to Ben, because like I said, he won the AI challenge. He was one of the best students that we had out there in the boot camp, and he really took it like fish to water. And so, like you said, understand the fundamentals, know how those simple things are. You may have to slow down a little bit,
Yeah.
because we live in a world in which, like, well, why don't you just give me the PRD? I mean, you know what? It doesn't work that way. But once you
Exactly.
understand how the technology works, once you understand
Exactly.
the ebb and flow of how large language models work, it's amazing what you can do. So
Exactly.
anyway, Ben, thank you for coming. We will have to
My
have you
pleasure.
back. Right?
Thank you for having me,
Thank you,
Mustafa. It
guys.
was a real pleasure. Thank you for everything in general.
Bye for now.
Bye, guys.